Good morning, everyone. This is Angie Huffman of HFS Associates, your host of Business Edge. But right now I want to tell you about the services that I offer. My firm is an accounting and business advisory services firm. So if you are a business owner and you are tired of wearing all the hats, as us ladies here have been talking today about how we tend to wear all the hats in our business, it's time for you to let go of that accounting and financial advice hat and get professional advice and get that work off your plate so you can focus more on what you should be doing in your business, and that is getting more business and growing your business. So if you need help with those services, your bookkeeping, your tax, your financial projections, managing that whole financial piece, find out more about me at www.hfs-associates.com. So that's Angie Huffman of HFS Associates, here to help you with all your business and accounting needs.
It's back to more of the Business Edge on V1370.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Business Edge. We talked about some of the challenges for women business owners, but if you had to tell the audience what has been your biggest challenge in starting your business, what is that, and what did you do to overcome that? And we'll start with Teresa.
Well, I think my biggest challenge would have to be laying the infrastructure for a business. I had to formalize my business because I was doing it as a sideline, as part of a regular 9-to-5 job. And when I decided that I wanted to become a business, I had to go through that whole process of deciding what type of business I wanted to be. And after doing that, then I had to go through this whole process of a business plan, financing, finding someone that would take care of my financing and bookkeeping, and doing marketing. So I think the biggest challenge, of course, has been laying that infrastructure that really does lead to the success of your business, and kind of not building a business on sand. So that when the tides come in, you finally, it all just slips away. That has been one of my biggest challenges. I'm not a math whiz, and so I was really wrestling with, once the money came in, making sure that it was expended properly to go back into the business, making sure that I was paid, making sure that taxes were paid. And someone jokingly told me, which really sent me running to Angie, is that, you're really paving your way to prison, aren't you? Because the accounting part it's just that critical. The accounting part of running a business, I can't stress that enough. The accounting part of running a business is very critical. It's nice to see the checks come in. It's nice to know you're making money. It's nice to know that probably at the end of your year you're going to make a profit. But if it is not done with proper accounting, you lose all of that benefit. And at some point you have to open up your books for public disclosure, whether it's to get more financing, whether it's a scrutiny by the IRS, or whether it's to show other clients that you do know how to manage money for additional contracts. So I would say that was my biggest challenge.
Okay. Alrighty. I think we'll hit more on that financial piece in a little while, but I want to hear from Paula and Chris, what has been your biggest challenge?
My biggest challenge has been knowing when to leverage off of others' expertise. So it's, again, like Chris, I'll echo what Chris said earlier. We want to do it all. We think we can do it all. I started to do my pro formas on my own when I was doing my business plan. Well, I've never had an accounting and finance class in my life. I was a Russian major, but here I am going through, QuickBooks for Dummies and every little business book you can find and ripping my hair out. And so then I went to the Dingman Center at the University of Maryland. They have a program where you can contact MBA candidates and you can hire them to help you with some of that. But at the same time, that still wasn't what it still didn't meet every one of my needs. I understood pro formas better, but it still didn't get me to a place where I needed a publishing magazine pro forma. And that's where Angie and HFS has been so helput
Thank you for that plug, Paul.
It was almost like it was very intuitive to you. You just dived in, and I thought, oh my God, I could have went here a year ago. But basically knowing when to spend the money. You're very frugal as a new small business owner.
Yes.
And I always said, I can do it cheaper myself, and I can get an MBA student to do it cheaper. And at the end of the day, I really didn't get what I needed until I put a little more money into it.
And as far as leveraging that expertise, I also know that you've hired somebody to help you with the editorial pieces, and there's the actual layout of the magazine. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, pretty much as a publisher and executive editor, I'm sitting in a project management kind of role. The people that I've outsourced with are, HFS for the financial piece, financial planning and bookkeeping. I have a copy editor I've brought on board as a freelancer. I have a managing editor who has over 20 years experience with startup magazines. And I also have an art director and who has a eCity corporation. They are handling all my graphic design. So it's good. But it's just starting. Now I'm realizing, okay, I need a salesperson, for ad sales. And, now I need an admin assistant, So it's never ending. But the big thing is, the challenge is knowing when to take the risk to bring on yet another person to cover another area.
Because, again, you can't wear all those hats indefinitely. Yes, the reality is when you are starting out, you do tend to need to wear all the hats initially. But as you continue on, the work just becomes beyond you. So if you're going to grow your business, you got to bring that expertise on. Chris, what about your biggest challenge?
My biggest challenge is raising money. I have a startup medical device company, so I'm out now trying to raise $3 million. And of course, the first step also for me was getting my financials in presentable shape that I could give to a potential investor, and that's, of course, where I came to Angie, who put my my financials together for me, because I don't have a financial background, and I kind of wrote my financials out longhand in words, and Angie turned it into a spreadsheet for me. But right now, according to the Huffman Foundation for Entrepreneurship, more than 50%, I think it's 53% of the companies that are being started by women, but less than 13% of the available investment dollars are going to women-owned companies. So while being a woman has opened some doors, it is a difficult challenge to raise large amounts of money for a women-owned company. So I am on the road making presentations to potential investors. I've gotten enough money to get the company started, but I'm going to need some more investors to really grow the company into a significant size.
Okay. While we're thinking about it, Chris, if there's any angel investors out there, where can they reach you?
My company's on the web at www.encorepath.com. That's ENCOREPATH. And my phone number is 410-522-8709.
Yeah. So if you are an investor out there looking to invest some money, think about what Chris is doing here with this very needed medical device that'll help restore at least some use to stroke victims in their arms, and it's a very worthwhile company, a worthwhile product, and I can assure you, Chris will use that money wisely. So, and I think that is the biggest out of all of us here. That I think has been your biggest challenge is just the significant amount of money that you need to raise in order to even produce your first product, first unit. So
yeah, I mean, I was lucky. I licensed a device that had been prototyped, it had been built, had been clinically tested, had been patented. So my device was pretty far along in the product development cycle, but still to do the engineering, and now I'm going into manufacturing. It requires a lot of money.
And so that I think, when I look at the four of us here, that's to me jumps out as the biggest significant challenge for you as well, because I'm like Teresa. I started my business part-time, so I was able to accumulate some funds, still have a day job to pay the household bills until things grew enough that we felt comfortable leaving our jobs. Paula, how did you manage that piece?
To get my initial seed money, I feel I was kind of blessed. I was fortunate enough to have two private lenders who were colleagues and friends of mine, my husband's. I had tried to go to the bank's, the Small Business Administration path, but I personally was adamant I did not want to use our family finances and put our home up for collateral. I left a 6-figure salary job to do this, and I felt like, that's already a burden enough for my family to absorb. So I really wanted to do it myself, and the challenge in publishing is that you don't have revenue for, maybe a good 3 to 5 years. And so if I did get a loan, even on my own from a bank, you have to start paying them back in 6 months, and there would be no revenue at that time to do it. So I was just very blessed. I have believers in my business plan. Actually, the one gentleman who gave me my loan said, geez, if nothing else, if this doesn't work, you write smashing business plans. I'd like to start a business doing that. So things are, I really believe in the law of attraction. Things are just really falling into place for me. And if nothing else, if this magazine does not take off, although I'm very positive it will, because there's so many remarried people out there, if it doesn't work at the end of the day, I think I've accomplished a lot of things, achieved a lot of goals, maybe not the money piece, but just being able to meet so many new people, learn how to start a business. The rewards are just very great.
And what you've learned, you can certainly take onto another business.
Yes.
I forget who it was, but the person who started, I believe it was Macy's, had actually started at least 10 different department stores before Macy's finally took off. So it's, that's another thing that a challenge I have with working with some of my clients is they see every little failure as like this big problem, this big, and I'm like, but look what you've learned with this. Take this knowledge and move forward and change your behavior in a way that you need to, and then I call it, well, I didn't coin it this, but it's called failing forward. And instead of looking at every failure as a reason to stop,
Right.
So that I think is, I like the positive attitude you have about that. So that even if this magazine doesn't work, you've learned so much that you can use in other ways. Okay, we need to go to a break.